Today we are joined on the Unafraid Show by Brooks Austin, aka the Film Guy, the director of recruiting for the On SI Network, man over in the Eastern Time Zone, man who believes or reads SEC propaganda from Greg Sankey himself. Austin Brooks, welcome to the show.
Hey, man, I'm glad to be here, George. I wouldn't say, I read a lot. I would say I'm more of a spreader of that SEC propaganda, man. I am a propagandizer. I am a believer. I am one who is a firm believer that there is some good football everywhere else, but this football down here, pretty damn important, pretty damn good.
Okay, we can agree that the football down in SEC country is great. I was born in Memphis, Tennessee. I played for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I've been down into SEC country. I didn't know what the biggest cocktail party, which is now changed name, Georgia, Florida, was until I was down there. So I get it. Mm-hmm. But I believe, Brooks, that things have changed in college football, right? That with the advent of NIL, the transfer portal, that the advantage that the SEC had in terms of being the singularly best conference, I think that has been nerfed and that is no longer true.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Look, I don't have any doubts about the top end of the Big Ten. And I'm with you. I think that to spend money on players and the ability to invest in the athletes that you have on your roster certainly is an implication of success, right? It's just my belief that if we were to rank the top 20 spenders and the top 20 meaningful programs and the most impactful ones in terms of player acquisition and the ones that we deem capable of winning national titles, the majority of those reside in the SEC. Look, the NIL era of college football has certainly impacted the success rates of Ohio State, of Oregon, of Penn State, of Michigan, right? There's no doubt about that. USC right now in 2026, there's no doubt about that. But there's also no doubt that it's helped Tennessee, right? It's helped Ole Miss. It's helped LSU. It's helped some of these other programs as well. And that's my point, right? I think there are 9 or 10 programs in the SEC that spend at the rate required to win in this sport at its highest levels. And I think there are 5 or 6 of those programs in the Big Ten. And okay, that's my only argument. There's no hatred or I think there's quality football up there at the Big Ten. I get into a beef with Big Teners when they try to tell me that like Auburn and Minnesota are the same caliber of football program. They might look like that in the record book, but like I don't believe that because I believe that resources impact the outcomes in college football. Yes. And I think you would agree.
Okay, I 100% agree with that. But I also believe that things are a year-by-year basis, right? That if we're putting out what team is best, or what conference is best from year to year. And the biggest argument that the Big Ten and the SEC and that I've been making for years is that the SEC not playing 9 conference games is a racket. It is a racket for the majority of the SEC. That obviously when it was the East and the West, the West was a gauntlet. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And the East had a little something.
It went through. I won't push back. It went through decades of transition, right? Yes, in the early 90s, like and one side it was Florida, and in the Saban era, the West was dominated by Alabama. Thus, the SEC was dominated by Alabama. But yeah, continue. I'm with you. The divisionals created a lopsided environment in the SEC. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. But when you play 9 conference games, and this is why Greg Sankey is smart for this. Like, I agree he's smart for this, but it is also, I've gone into detail about the manipulation of the rankings where that happens. Whereas if you play 9 conference games, that's 4.5 losses on average for every single team versus 8 conference games where it is 4. And for the SEC teams that aren't like South Carolina that play Clemson in the non-conference, I'm talking about like your Ole Miss schedulers.
The Ole Miss beat the shit out of Wake Forest to the point where Wake Forest paid them $4 million to not play them this year.
Yeah, but
like, this is my thing. Like,
is that if you are Ole Miss, right? Their non-conference last year was absolutely putrid. It was putrid.
Okay.
Then you want to play 8 conference games, and then you lose to bottom tier teams in your conference, and now you got Lane Kiffin crying about not being put in the college football playoff.
Look, when this debate comes up, everyone takes single, like the next one's going to be throwing me Alabama, don't lose to Vandy. I'm with everyone in those agreements or discussions and arguments. I don't think those teams deserved last year to be college football playoff teams. That's not what I went viral for this last week debating. The debate that we're currently, at least I believe, discussing is whether or not the SEC should have to go to 9 conference games. And my only point is, the 8 conference games alone have the 11 of the 12 toughest schedules in all of college football last year. And people will throw at me, well, strength of schedules are biased and rated.
If you're being honest, like you have to.
They off of an extra regular season schedule game that people say, and they say that enhances rankings, but rankings are nationally voted upon. There's no bias in that. Like there's no bias in college football coaches doing their AP coaches poll. There's no bias in a metric coming from a computer system in FPI. Like this is what I don't understand. I don't understand how there are metrics that are voted upon. And by the way, if we don't have those metrics, what the hell do we have? We're comparing apples to oranges. Even if we go to 9 games in the SEC, Big Ten fans, a portion of them will think they're playing a tougher schedule still, or the SEC still ain't shit. Let's play on field. You see what I'm saying? Like there's always going to be, we're looking at a subjective argument. Is this conference better than this conference? And even if I create a computer model to spit out a data point, which is exactly what we have right now, one side or the other, depending upon whether or not they like the result of the outcome of the machine, is going to tell me that the machine is biased.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying?
Because See the
and
thing
we're going to spin in circles, George. We're going to spin in circles on this because I have inherent bias, and I'm okay telling you that I think SEC is just a deeper conference, and that's my whole point.
So let's agree upon that point, right? That I would agree that the SEC was technically deeper last year than the Big Ten. However,
it historically is and repetitively will be for the foreseeable future, which in my opinion,
that going forward,
George,
you believe that going forward that the SEC will continue to be the best conference. But hold up,
the deepest.
Let me,
and that's all we're debating.
Okay, so let me bring this point to you. Is that it feels like the goalposts continuously move on this because the SEC now is saying we are now the deepest conference, where the argument previously was we have the most elite teams. And I do believe that last year they were the deepest, but they did not have the most elite teams.
George, the argument that I don't know what other people are arguing about. All I'm arguing about is that the SEC don't got to go to 9 conference games. The schedule at 8 is plenty freaking tough in comparison to what you got going on.
I don't understand how you can say that when
because you just agreed that the conference is deeper, and that the conference is historically consistently deeper. Not to mention it's smaller by 2 teams. So mathematically, George, mathematically speaking, if my conference is deeper in terms of high quality teams and we have fewer teams, if you make me play more conference games, my schedule is going to be harder. I don't understand how there's a debate there. You just conceded that it's a deeper conference.
Now, I admitted that last year. Hold on. I admitted that last year it was deeper. Historically, they have had the most elite teams in the SEC. And the problem with some of these rankings in terms of obviously the SEC people are upset with the computer models. I'm sorry. They like the computer models. They're upset with the human versions. And we both agreed that Alabama and Ole Miss didn't deserve to be in the top 12 last year. But one of the things that you brought up was the ESPN FPI. And that is the one that I think that should never under any circumstances be put in to the rankings. And the only reason, and like you tell me this, I'm going to list off a couple of names to you, just the top of it. And this is exactly why I don't believe the FPI needs to be in there. So Do we have any debate that the number one team in the country it was Ohio State at the end of the season?
Yeah, no, we got the right answer at the end of
Yeah.
the year last year in the
Okay.
college football playoff. They were the best team.
And I don't think that anybody can argue. Like, you can say Oregon, you can say Texas, you can say Notre Dame. Who cares? Nobody's really going to argue with you with putting Texas or Notre Dame at number two and three, right? Like, it's not
Mhm.
like you can't really. But now here's the issue: you have Alabama at number four. At 9-4, team that got beat up in the bowl game, even though bowl games have completely changed. But if we don't think that that was a playoff team, how can they be the fourth best team in college football FPI? And then Ole Miss 6, Penn State 7, Georgia 8. And I would argue that Georgia was better than both of those, was better than Alabama.
Are,
And
are you reading off end of season FPI
yes,
rankings from
yeah, yeah,
last year? Okay.
yeah.
I was just confused where you're
Oh,
going. Yeah, all
okay.
right.
Yeah, yeah, yes, yeah, yeah.
No, you're fine.
So excuse me. Yes. So this is the end of the season FPI rankings.
Yeah,
Ohio State 1, Texas 2, Notre Dame 3, Alabama
yeah,
4, Ole Miss 5, Penn State
yeah.
6,
See,
Georgia
again,
7, Oregon 8.
like I don't solely like live and breathe upon FPI. Again,
Yeah.
I included FPI in the discussion because it is a metric, if I'm not mistaken, that is included in strength of schedule. Okay. That's
Yes.
why I included it.
Yeah.
Which also on top of strength of schedule, it's one of three, if again, correct me if I'm wrong, one of three metrics included in strength of schedule, one of the three being FPI, coaches poll,
Yep.
AP poll.
Yes.
So let's throw the FPI out. Okay.
Okay.
Let's say it's biased. ESPN did it. That's the SEC homer. Let's just call it that. So why are the regional or why are the national analysts that vote on the AP polls suddenly biased? Why is the coaches who coach the sport, why are they
No.
suddenly
See,
biased? That's again,
see,
this is
now
where
this is the
we only have
argument.
so many metrics. We
Yeah, yeah,
only
yeah.
have so many metrics to
Correct.
measure this sport. And in my opinion, again, the six teams in the Big Ten, there is no doubt those suckers can win a national title tomorrow.
Yeah.
All right. But there are just more of those teams in the SEC. That's my whole point.
How many
And I
teams
think
do you
everybody
believe?
agrees with that.
Okay. So how many teams that are currently this upcoming season in the SEC do you
Yeah.
believe are national championship worthy?
Well,
That
this is a tough one going into 2026 because I think there's 9 teams across the sport that are college football, 9 or 10 that are championship caliber,
yeah.
but all of them have holes.
Yes.
All of them have holes. Look, and like this is where I think college football is going. We're going into a sport with far more parity than we ever have. 10 years ago,
Love it.
this debate is useless. I love it too. I'm here for it. And all it matters nowadays is, do you care enough? Are you close to the talent? Can you get the talent there? All right.
Yep.
And do you have enough money? And again, if you and I, George, if we spent the next 30 minutes or however long we're going to be here sitting down saying, hey, in the current structure of college football, who can legitimately build a roster over a 3-year
Yeah.
span to go compete for a national title and win the 16 games required to do so, we're going to come up with about 20 names. We're going to come up with about 20 programs, and about 6 of those are going to come from the Big Ten. About 10 of those are going to come from the SEC, and the remainder are going to be sprinkled between Miami, Notre Dame, and Florida State and Clemson.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to end up.
And before we get into the teams that actually have a national championship chance for the SEC this year, I want to
Yeah.
bring up and talk about a point that you just made about the number of teams that in a 3-year span can, with the combination of coaching, coaching, recruiting, and transfer portal, could
Yeah.
put together a national championship roster.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that that is the issue with college football right now. Is that going forward, that history is different, than we are at a different point in time in life, a different point in TV ratings, a different point in like where we're going in a different direction. I
Mm-hmm.
believe that as college football grows, that it is better for the sport as a whole, right? That can you come up with any set of circumstances that in a 3-year, hell, even in a 10-year window, like from what we see right now in a 10-year window, that Vanderbilt or Mississippi State
No.
could win a national championship.
No, but
Yeah.
neither could Northwestern or
Yeah, yeah. No, no,
Rutgers.
no, 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 no.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
wasn't about the
Or for
SEC.
that matter, Wake Forest,
Yes,
or for that,
yes.
there's haves and have-nots in this sport. You're right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. So, and
Or I
I was
should
going to
say
name,
haves and have-nots. There cans and can'ts. There
yes,
are programs that I think can and programs that just it would be mathematically impossible.
yes. And
Yeah.
that's the point. So it wasn't just about the SEC. It is the
Yeah, no.
Kansases. It is the Kansas State, the Rutgers, the Northwestern. So they're
Mhm.
I was just illustrating the point with the
Yeah.
SEC, that I believe that for the sport to grow to where it needs to be, that pool of teams that can in a 3-year window hit the lottery in terms of getting a
Mhm.
great head coach, recruit well. I mean, of course, that the Blue Bloods are always going to have some sort of advantage, just like LA has weather and, Miami has weather and other places don't. And, every place has
Yeah.
advantages or disadvantages. I believe that for the sport to continue to grow, that other fan bases outside of those 20 have to have some level of hope, that
Yeah.
if they don't have any hope that they can't get things going at any point in time and can never win, you are going to see those fan bases die off on some level, and you're going to see like interest die, except
Yeah.
for the top teams, which I believe overall is bad for college football.
Yeah, I don't I want to push back on some. I don't think necessarily some pockets and some, fan bases in the country have ever expected or had hope of a national title in college football.
Yeah,
Um, in fact, I would say that number, like we just got done talking about, I think the number of teams legitimately in the run to win a national title has actually increased since
yeah,
NIL and transfer portal. I think the main, like when you were a Kansas football fan, at least back in the day, you were consistently Kansas football. Now, when you're a Kansas football and you have a great player that you love, you got to worry about him leaving you.
yeah,
I think that's like there's no consistency in your roster. Therefore, there's no consistency in your allegiance to your football program because the athletes don't have consistent allegiance to your program anymore. So I think that's probably a bigger problem. I think more teams have a chance to win a national title now than ever before. That being said, it's harder. It's harder than ever before to win a national title, I think.
yes. Oh, last
Yeah.
year was the toughest national championship
Yeah.
to ever win, simply because when you got into the tournament, you could have to win 4 times instead of 2.
Yeah. And
And
I think it's gonna get harder, honestly, George, with the straight seeding instead of gifting Boise State a 4 seed. No offense,
yes,
Boise, but like I thought it was hysterical last year, and hysterical for the wrong term, like made me lunatic, like it made me crazy watching a college football committee look me in my face and tell me that Boise State was the 10th best team in the country, but yet we give them the 4th seed in a bracket. Like this never happened in sports ever, where we all agree this is the
yeah.
10th best team. Let's give them the 4th seed. Why? Well, because we wanted to create some type of importance on conference championships.
Well, they
No.
were they were trying to go with the NFL model, which even when I was in the NFL, I was like, the fact that you could have an 11-win team go play a 7-9 Seattle
Yeah.
on the road in the playoffs is like,
Goofy.
yeah. So
Goofy.
yeah, and I
But we
do
fixed that
believe
one.
that, yeah, and the straight seeding, it definitely creates a better situation. And when we were talking about harder, right?
Mhm.
Imagine if Oregon, right, who was the number 1 team in the country when the playoffs started. Imagine if it were only a 4-team playoff. You know who's not in there?
Ohio State.
Ohio State, which
Yeah.
which I believe was
Or
the only team
or
that could
even
beat
with
them.
Georgia, even with the straight seeding, like Oregon doesn't draw Ohio State off rip. You know what I
Correct.
mean? They're not sitting at home for a month and then getting the hottest team in college
Yeah.
football off
Yeah.
rip in the Rose
Which,
Bowl. They're playing somebody else. They're probably
yeah.
playing Clemson or probably
Yes.
playing somebody else.
Which is some of these models for the college football playoff and its future. I hate them with the power of 1,000 suns,
Yeah.
because the idea that then we would go to 14 teams or 16 teams, right?
Yeah.
And then you would then still have buys is
Yeah.
insanity to me. Like, why
Yeah.
would we then play an opening round like 13, 14, 15, 16, and then have those teams play another thing, and then somebody else is sitting out? I'm like, this is completely anti-competitive. I don't know who was sitting up. I mean, I don't know what they were smoking, whether they were hot, whether they came up with this bright ass
Hey,
idea that it doesn't make any sense.
all right, I'll tell you this, not to rehash an old discussion that we've very amicably moved across from, but I think we should continue to want the SEC and the Big Ten homers fighting about this 8-game, 9-game schedule, because that's the last point of alignment that Petiti and Sankey are throwing at one another. God forbid they amicably agree upon everything, because the moment they do, we're just going to have a super league. Like, I
Yeah,
mean, that's the one thing keeping us from the Big Ten and the SEC just being college football, and then the rest of them just being an additive to college football. And I don't want that. For the love of God, I do not want that. So let's just keep fighting about 8 and 9, and we'll carry it on for the next 30 years. And then the Power Four can still exist. We've already removed the 5th, but let's just hold on to the 4 while we got to. And the only way we can is if Sankey and Petiti keep having this, my conference is better than your conference, dick measuring match, if I can say.
okay. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna throw a scenario at you here because I'm like a big picture college football guy. I
Yeah, me
believe
too.
so I already told you that I believe that it's better that if we can give more fan bases hope, right? In a 3-year
Mhm.
window. That I believe that college football, that the schools would make more money. Now mind you, this would be terrible for the SEC and the Big 10 individually, right?
Mhm.
Is to have a situation where imagine if the SEC, Big 10, Big 12, and ACC did like the NFL and negotiated all of their media rights together.
Mm.
Imagine how much money that
Yeah,
would be worth. The
yeah.
issue though is that even for my Oregon Ducks, for Ohio State, for Alabama, for Georgia, they would hate that because you know what that means? That means there's a little bit more parity. And that means sometimes they're going to be bad.
Yeah.
And their fans, because they control college football, the bigger brands, they would hate that. But I
Yeah.
believe that overall, that if we're looking 20 years from now, if we're looking at the health of college football, that's actually better to grow the game of college football than the system that we have right now.
Yeah, I don't know what we would do though with folks like Paul Feinbaum and Joel Klatt having to be like completely unbiased instead of riding Big Ten coattails or riding
Ooh.
SEC coattails. What would we do?
I,
What
I,
would we
I
do? Hey, by the way, as an Oregon Duck fan, you went from and alumnus, you went from who was caping for the Big 12 or the Pac-12 back in the day? Who was y'all's face? Like y'all did you? I mean, that's a great face,
yeah,
but you got Joel Klatt
yeah.
now. You got
Oh
Joel
man,
Klatt.
the
And
voice.
ain't nobody
Yes.
pounded Big Ten supremacy drum
Oh
more
my
than Joel
gosh.
Klatt.
Yes.
That's something. Hey, hats off to him. He is tremendous at it. My God, is he good at it? He's better of a spokesman for the Big Ten than any gas
One
bags got for
hundred
the
percent.
SEC. I
One
mean,
hundred
way
percent.
better. Way better.
Because see, the difference is
And he's
that
good
Fine.
at it. He's got good points. He's not just bullshitting. He's got
Yes.
good points. Where even though I disagree with him, I'm like, damn, if I didn't know something, you might have got me on that
Yeah. and Feinbaum, right? So I'm a Feinbaum listener. I like Feinbaum.
one.
And because I'm like going to enemy territory, and I'm a message
Yeah.
board reader. I am a like because I like to understand what people are really thinking and feeling from around the country, and I love people who care and love college football the same way that I do.
Yeah.
So I don't know what Feinbaum and Klatt would do. Actually, Klatt's so smart. He would just pivot
Yeah.
and just be, it'd be a new thing. But Feinbaum, he would
He'd
just
retire. He'd be in trouble. He'd
he
be
would
in trouble.
implode. And,
If he couldn't make jokes about Ryan Day's hair dye, he'd be in so much trouble.
oh yeah, yeah. But I think we all make jokes about Ryan Day's hair dye.
Hey,
Oh,
don't. His wife gonna come for you. His wife got somebody on social media this summer. Don't do it. You're
oh,
gonna be
that's
on
all
social
right.
media.
So so that's where I think that the best thing for college football is. So which
Yeah.
model do you prefer for college football? Not necessarily the SEC.
Yeah. I mean, for me, like, honestly, I despise October through January when we sit there and call those 13 committee members who we don't really get to know anything about or don't understand anything about their process. The whole entire college football space stands up and just calls those people stupid. They're idiots. They don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah,
They poke holes in all of their. And honestly, the best thing for me, my sanity, would be just to remove them entirely, which would be essentially what the 4+4+2+2+1+3 method would ultimately do, right? 4 automatic qualifiers from the SEC, 4 automatic qualifiers from the Big Ten, 2 automatic qualifiers from the ACC, 2 automatic qualifiers from the Big 12, and then 3 at-large bids, which is really just 2 at-large bids because Notre Dame's guaranteed to be a
yeah,
top 16 seed. Like, as long as I've been alive, I think 3 seasons since 1994 or something like that.
yeah. They
They've been,
haven't finished in the top
so
16.
they're gonna be there.
Yeah,
Okay, so it's really 2 at-large bids, which will really just be 1 at-large bid because one of those will be charity case to a mid-major, we would imagine.
yeah,
I think that method removes all questions apart from is the Big Ten and the SEC really that much better than the rest of college football? Which, if you've been watching college
the
football for
answer
20 years,
right now, yes. The
the
answer
answer
right
is
now is
yes.
yes.
The
Yeah.
answer is yes.
So
Now, if SMU keeps to or continues to keep using oil money to wow out here on the NIL front, they might win their way back into being a big time football program alongside Clemson, alongside Miami,
yep,
alongside Florida State that are deemed in the conversation for will you be included in the inevitable Super League that we're barrel
yeah.
racing
And
towards. It feels like,
Kyle Whittingham, when I got a chance to interview him, Utah's head coach, he said on
yeah,
record, he was like, within 5 years, we will have a Super League.
yeah. I mean,
And
it's
some of the
every
other
single
coaches,
step is pointing towards it.
yes, and some of the other coaches I talked to and have talked to, whether it was on the interviews or in other things, in passing and all of this, they've said that, but privately. Like they won't go on record
Yeah.
as saying it. But he was like, bro, I got no problem saying this. 5 years we're gonna have a super league.
Well, Kyle has no problem saying it because I think within 5 years he probably gonna retire,
Oh,
which he should.
I think
He's
that
earned
that's
the right
probably a
to.
3-year conversation. I
Yeah,
think that
I
they
mean they've
wanted
already
to.
lined up the next one.
Yeah,
So
and if I'm being
yeah,
honest, so he said that he couldn't go out the way that they went out last year. They had quarterback issues, all that stuff. So he was like, I can't
yeah.
retire on that type of note. I do believe he would have retired like 2 years ago
Mm,
had Scully not had that scandal situation.
yeah,
Yeah, that
yeah,
because I've talked to the players at Utah. They like the dude. They don't feel like he's treated them poorly. They're like, he did something real stupid when he was younger, and you know, and I think that they just needed to get further away from that. If we're being honest.
and they
Um.
have. Most people that just listen to that are like, "What happened?" So
Oh,
they've
so
distanced themselves
yes.
enough. Yeah,
So yeah. So go look it up if you want to.
or
Because
maybe don't. Maybe
yeah,
don't.
yeah.
Yeah. Either way.
So with the 4+4+2, well, 4 4
Yeah.
2 2 1 2, I don't.
Exactly. 16,
Yeah,
4 automatic qualifiers for the Big Ten and the ACC or the
yeah.
SEC.
See, it's weird because on one hand, I like that model, but
Yeah.
to my competitive nature, it feels wrong. You know what I mean?
It does. It does to automatically like seed us in those. I just I don't have a preference, George, not to duck the question. I just mentioned that one because it would remove the committee, which I'm
Yeah.
all for.
But
Whatever we
I
can do
I
to
do
remove as
believe
much
though
power from the
too.
committee as possible, I'm down for.
I do believe too, and I know that this is a radical idea, but I believe that people like me, you, Josh Pate, some of the guys from like Cover Three, Stu Mandel, or the
Yeah.
Bruce Feldman, that we would probably do a better job with the committee stuff and
Hmm.
picking the teams than the committee does.
Yeah.
And only because like our lives are dedicated to this.
Yeah.
Their lives are dedicated to being athletic directors and then
Yeah.
being, everything else. And they have
Former retired
higher
football
level.
players that don't cover college football.
Yeah.
is what
And so,
it's either AD or former dude who played who's no longer connected to the game. That's what
yeah,
they got going on.
correct. And so, and they're not necessarily as in touch with 2025 and the ongoings of things and recruiting, right?
Yeah.
For somebody like me and you. So you are a recruiting guy, the film guy.
Mhm.
I have in the last 12 months interviewed and been on campus for at 15 different schools, talking to head
Yeah.
coaches, athletic directors behind the scenes. My son's a college football athlete. I got another one that's coming up. I know pretty much all the quarterbacks from 23 to 25. Got the top ones, their phone numbers, text them, text head coaches, text, connected to all of this stuff. So follow recruiting, follow message boards, make content about it. You're in that same vein. How
Mhm.
are we less qualified? And then understand these metrics? We're connected to the fans, we understand the media stuff. How are we less, or why would we not be the optimal choice type of people to choose the college football, the top 16?
I mean, your guess is as good as mine. You sold me, brother. I'll fly out to watch football games
Yeah,
together with you guys on a couch.
I'm
I'll
doing
do
it
it.
for free anyway.
Um,
Well, not
I
for
mean, not
not
for
for
free.
not for free, but
Not
I'm
for
doing it.
free.
Yes, correct. Not for free, but I'm doing it because like this
Because we
is
love
my
it.
yes,
Yeah, like I quit my day. I worked my way out of my day job
yes.
because I live, eat, sleep, and breathe this.
For
I
four
taught
years
college
before
football
this,
for
Brooks,
365 days a year.
for the last 4 years, I hosted a solo show on Mad Dog
Ooh,
for 4 years. And I quit my job to make sure I could make college football content every day.
yeah. I mean,
So
there's no more pool of people more invested in the outcome of the sport than me. Look, my business, I've been in it for 5 or 6 years now. I can see it. I can see fan bases and general college football fans, their interest starting to wane right
yep.
now because they're beaten down with changes. So I've almost gotten to the point where now I almost want to ostrich this thing. I want to stick my head in the sand and say, "Hey guys, will y'all let me know when the ground settles so I can just decide if I like what I got going on now." So
Yeah.
I mean, the last 4 years, that's the other thing, George. Like we can talk about conference realignment. We can talk about which conferences are more important. The biggest concern for college football right now is that whoever is pulling the strings on this sport decided they weren't just going to make massive monumental changes. They were going to do all of them at the same time. They
Yes.
weren't just going to allow players to go wherever they wanted, whenever they wanted. They weren't just going to allow players to make however much money they wanted, however they wanted, with no rules attached. They weren't just going to make sure that, the college football playoffs changing left and right. They were going to do it all at the same time. And then,
Well, they
oh, by
didn't
the
have a
way, we're
choice
going to
because the
open up.
leadership.
Yeah,
It,
that's what I'm saying. I don't even know who that is, by the way. When we say leadership, like who is that? Because Mark Emmert, Charlie Baker,
yeah.
those goofies just listen to college football presidents and college presidents across the country.
Let
That
me
they're just answering
let's
to
go
those people no
back.
different than a commissioner.
Let's go back to how stupid that this was. Okay. The Ed O'Bannon lawsuit. So I testified in front of the
Mm-hmm.
Senate Judiciary Committee on NIL in 2020. Like it's on the record. You can go
Yeah.
look at my testimony, everything. Is at that point in time, the Ed O'Bannon lawsuit had already been solved, everything. Austin versus the NCAA. They were losing cases all over the place. They
Mm-hmm.
spent $100 million of conference money fighting this legally instead of, and then the problem came. California came with House Bill 216 to
Mm-hmm.
have NIL to that way players can make money. Then Florida, they sped theirs up. So then they were the first ones to have NIL. People don't understand how that's impacted recruiting. You have kids from Texas where they couldn't get paid, moving to California, moving to Florida, moving to Georgia,
Ugh.
all over the place. Now you got Tennessee trying to enact rules that they can't be punished, that any of the state schools
Yeah.
can't be punished if they
Yeah.
break the rules. Like, what are we doing? And you are 100% right about the lack of leadership. College football needs a commissioner like it needs air.
And George, I think like all of these things, at least for me, I can get on board with. I can get on board with young athletes making money as much as they want. For the love of God, we do not tell Taylor Swift when she's 17 years old that she can't make $100 million. We don't tell musicians that they can't do this. We don't tell artists that they can't do this. Hell, we don't tell business techs that they can't do this. The 17-year-olds selling apps for millions all over the world. So for some reason, we can't give young athletes money. They're irresponsible. No, I'm okay with young people making money. I'm okay with young people moving around. I'm okay with saying, hey, I'm not getting a good opportunity here, in my opinion. Whether your opinion is right or wrong, whether it's a good decision for you or not, it's your free will to do so. Make the wrong decision. Go, have freedom. Your coaches have it too. We just couldn't do it all at once. You know what I mean? We can, without regulation. We couldn't just all throw it on to college football and go, well, shit, it'll figure itself out. Because no, it won't.
Emmert's fault.
No, it won't.
This is Mark Emmert's fault. Like, this is his fault. No, this is just like Larry Michael Scott. And I call Larry Michael Scott so the former commissioner of the Pac-12 because he ran the Pac-12 like Dunder Mifflin paper.
Yeah.
And so...
But, George, you're far more connected in this, and this is why I'm interrupting you to ask this question.
Yeah,
because I'm genuinely curious. I have always assumed that a person like Charlie Baker is just a puppet. He's just there to answer to the other 40 more important people than him. He's just a face to be a whipping post. No different than Roger Goodell just answis to the 32
He works for
commissioners.
the owners. He's their mouthpiece.
Exactly. So when we shit on Charlie Baker gets the noise. His name gets dragged through the mud. But in reality, it's the president at the Ohio State University. It's the president at Georgia. It's the president at Alabama. It's the president at Oregon. It's the president at Texas. Those people did not want to relinquish power to young athletes for decades, hundreds of years playing college football. And now we are where we are.
Yep. You are 100% right. 100%.
And I'm glad you know that. And like you can confirm that to me because it's something I've always said. But you've been on Congress floors debating this stuff.
Yes.
And it dates back to me. I ran back the old video. It's gonna sound crazy and political, but it's not. I ran back the video of Joe Biden cooking the NCAA president on Supreme Court floor from 1998. 1998, when we went from the regular model to the BCS model. Joe Biden in 1998 is looking at the president of the NCAA and going, why are you here? You have no answers. Bring me the people that you answer to. And here we are 30 years later. Same shit.
And this is exactly why when now that you bring that up, when people say keep politics out of sports, it's literally always in the middle of sports. This is why we
not only that, sports is begging for politics help right now. Sports is like, please, for the love of God, Congress, save us.
All right, so let's get back to the SEC teams that you believe can win a national championship.
Yeah,
because on this season, because I believe that list involves Texas, Georgia, if their Q situation is right. I don't believe that Tennessee has a legitimate shot because I think they have a quarterback problem. I would put Alabama technically in that list because their roster is good enough. I don't believe Brian Kelly's going to have a defense yet, but I guess we could put them in that conversation. And then I would put South Carolina as my dark horse. So I got like
we have the same 5 list. That's 5. Texas, Georgia, LSU, Bama, South Carolina. That's 5.
Yeah.
We have the same list now. If Florida had a regular person's schedule, Florida could tend into their way into a playoff.
What did they do to somebody for the last? Who do they owe money to that their schedules look like this the last 2 years?
So the SEC randomized it. Well, they say they randomized it. Every SEC homer that it doesn't wear burnt orange will tell you that Texas got the favor.
Yes.
But every schedule got randomized, and not only that, it got doubled down for 2 years for some random reason. I guess because when the 2 new entrants came in, they didn't know how they were going to balance schedules, so they just randomized it for 1 year and then said, "Hey, the next year just flip home and away." So if you got F'd 1 year, you really got F'd twice. which is what happened to Florida. It's kind of to an extent what happened to Texas, Georgia, and it's certainly what happened to Oklahoma. Oklahoma's got another one of
Yes.
these. Oklahoma's got a
Brutal.
brutal schedule. Florida doesn't help themselves either. Like most SEC schools, their annual in-state rivals are automatic non-P4 or non-conference games for them. So they're going to play Miami or Florida State every year, just like Georgia's going to play Georgia Tech, just like South Carolina's going to play Clemson. So you're not helping yourself out with the schedule on top of the SEC randomizing you. And just like I said, they got screwed. There's no doubt about that. But man, that's the nature of this conference now. Like they're going to randomize it next year. And then the year after that, no different than the Big Ten. The Big Ten's got a shake like this, where last year Ohio State had a top 8 strength of schedule, and then Indiana had a 77th strength of schedule, just because it's randomized. And the conferences have gotten so large at this point.
See, I want schedules. I don't want any advanced scheduling except for, your protected non-conference rivals. If you got South Carolina, Clemson, you have, and we'll talk in a second about Notre Dame, USC. But I do believe that you have to have that sort of thing going, right? That schedule should not be, your non-conference schedule should not be made 10 years in advance. I believe that for the betterment of college football, that we got to find a way to get Oregon and Alabama with a home and home. And we got to get...
Hey, there's rumors, at least they've put inklings out that, again, if they come down to this 9-conference game debate that they have, the SEC and the Big Ten will eventually have crossover schedules. They'll eventually have, and they're already on the precipice of this. Texas and Ohio State start the season off. Texas and Michigan played last year. So I'm with you, though. I want everyone to have it. Play your conference game. Play your 2 cupcakes, because I love Charleston Southern football just as much as everybody else. I want to make sure they get that $250,000 or however much they get paid to get that.
Cupcake.
Yeah,
nine conference games, or we go down to
you played at Oregon, big dog. You played at Oregon, so you get all the P5 love in the world. I'm a D2 aficionado. Okay, I need that 1AA money.
No. I do agree. No.
I
do believe that they need to play one FCS game. My kid's at an FCS. He's at UC Davis, who's playing Washington this year. I'm excited about this football game.
But imagine how much nicer your son's uniforms at UC Davis would be if they weren't just playing Washington, they were also playing Oregon, and they were also playing, let's call it USC.
In that case, we need a model where everybody's playing 10 Power 4 games, and then you can schedule 2, whoever you want to schedule.
Yeah.
But let's get on, since we were talking about rivalries, let's get on to this Notre Dame USC situation. Because I hate this. I believe that USC is being soft, that they have that, like, you can't sell your soul to try to make the college football playoff. And also, it is completely against what USC is supposed to be about. This is supposed to be the vaunted USC. We'll play anybody, anytime. And starting last year, Lincoln Riley started hinting like, we may need to craft our schedule a little bit better to try to make the college football playoff. Alabama did it and this. Yeah. And I'm like, this is exactly why people who live in the South hate city slickers. This is the exact same reason. Because how is this because people who live in the country and who live in the South, they have traditional values. They have traditional things that they love. And when you have somebody come from the outside who doesn't have that same love and respect for Notre Dame USC, they don't care about throwing it in the trash because they're like, oh, it'll help us here. When in reality, if you replace Notre Dame with another Power 4 team, it just so happens that Notre Dame is good right now. It was a while where, like, Notre Dame, they were a decent team, but not special. It just so happens to be on one of them runs right now. Like, don't duck the smoke. This is what college football is supposed to be about.
I'm with you. I love college football traditions as much as the next guy. I think it's cowardice that he's ducking the smoke. Shame on you. Rivalries are important. I'm not being facetious here. I'm dead serious. I love college football as much as the next guy. I love its traditions. However, I sit on this stage and on my platform, and I crap on Notre Dame for being an independent and this supremacy that they hold over college football
Yeah.
because they have an NBC contract and they think they're special. And New Rockne was good, and so they just get to walk around and be special Notre Dame. And everybody continues to schedule them because it's Notre Dame, and we're going to get a lot of money, maybe potentially in the home split. Yada yada yada. I have been begging Power Four teams to stop scheduling them.
Mm.
You want Notre Dame to get in the conference? Stop scheduling their ass. ACC schools. You want Notre Dame to get into a football conference? USC. Stop scheduling them. Make them play
If that were
Navy.
USC's
Make them play
stance,
Navy in the Mountain West. Make
so
them play
if
Navy in the Mountain West and Army every year, and then be the 15th overall seed because they basically played a mid-major schedule. That's what I've begged teams to do. I hate that it's coming at a traditions axing. That sucks. But God forbid if it finally forces Notre Dame into a conference like the rest of the big boys, which they are a
yeah.
big boy, then I'm happy. I'm fine with it. I'm cool with
Brooks,
it.
I
Like,
would agree with you as if
but it's a
that were the
tradition, and some
reason.
things get shot. It's just there's casualties in this business, baby. There's casualties. There's got to be dead bodies on the street. And if USC Notre Dame is one of them, then by God, the enemy lies. It's moving forward. You know what I mean?
See,
It's just the way it
I
is.
could get if Lincoln Riley or their athletic director or
Said some
their
shit like
president,
that, you'd be on it. Yeah.
I could at least get but behind it. But when the actual reason is ducking the smoke, that I
Yeah.
cannot get behind.
And
That
again, I'm with everybody giving Lincoln and USC's athletic administration department giving them hell for this decision and calling them a bunch of cowards or whatever name you want to use. I'm with y'all. However, I'm kind of glad somebody's trying to stick it to Notre Dame. Get your butt in a conference for the love of God.
all right. We will finish up here. All right. So we're headed to the national championship at some point in time soon, right?
Yeah.
16 teams, right?
Mm.
Who are your 5 favorite right now?
Like for the next 5 years, for the next year, what are we talking about?
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I'll ask who are your 5 favorite to win the national championship this year?
Mm. Let's go Texas, Ohio State. Let's go Oregon because of the schedule. They could sleepwalk their way to a 12-0 this year if y'all haven't looked at that schedule.
The whiteout game, night game at Penn State is going to be a little.
Oh, that's right. They got to beat James Franklin in a big game. Should be tough. Texas, Ohio State, Oregon. I'm gonna go. I know I covered Georgia, but I got to see some things before I preseason. I got Clemson in that mix as well.
I definitely have Clemson in that mix. They are a sleeper this year. I want
And you know what?
everybody to hear that.
I'll say Georgia just to make sure I don't get fired.
Okay.
So there, we'll say that. But look, I got questions about them too. Like I got to see what the offense looks like this year. I believe in Gunnar Stockton. I got to see the whole parts of the system work together. The same thing with Julian saying, like, I know they got a bunch of weapons, but hey, does everybody just like forget that he fired Brian Hartline the last time he tried to hire him as an offensive coordinator?
I have
Anybody?
been saying this.
Did we just forget that?
Why does I said this, Ohio State fans should be nervous as hell.
Nervous as hell.
Because my God.
With the new quarterback. The last time it did work was CJ Stroud.
Thank you. So if you're Brian Hartline, right? Are you going to be willing, because most coordinators, they kind of work their way up through the system and they have a chance, because in your first time or second time coordinating, you are going to make mistakes. Chip Kelly had some mistakes last year, and he's a phenomenal offensive coordinator, phenomenal play caller. But you don't get to take your lumps at Ohio State. And so if this offense does not look like it did last year with Jeremiah Smith and Tate and and the running backs that they have coming back and that defense and if it does not look good and he has to get demoted, do you believe that there is any, I do not believe, well, it would be tough for me to believe that Brian Hartline would be willing to stay at Ohio State. And he's the reason why they keep getting all these wide receiver recruits. That he would be willing to stay there and handle another demotion.
You know, I always read the tea leaves like everybody else. And when it comes to reading tea leaves on our coaches about to leave, pay attention to whether or not they're taking interviews elsewhere. I think it was the Toledo head coaching job. Didn't he take an interview with them this offseason?
Yes, he did.
Yeah, that's
he will be somewhere else if he gets.
He will be.
Demoted
and look,
again.
I think that's a better path for him personally. Like he's a great recruiter, he's a great football mind, but maybe he's not a great play caller. And look, there are great head football coaches that are not great play callers.
Yes, it's two separate jobs.
It's two separate jobs.
There are people who are better head coaches than coordinators. There are people who are better coordinators than head coaches. Just because you're a coordinator doesn't mean you should be a head coach. And just because you are a position coach does not mean that you shouldn't skip over the coordination part, which you're not good at. And that may be Brian Hartline.
My biggest pet peeve, which will inevitably be what happens at Ohio State if it doesn't work out, my biggest pet peeve is when head coaches think they can still remain play callers. The greatest of all time don't do that. Yep. Nick Saban did not call his own plays. Kirby Smart won 2 national titles, not calling his own plays. Dabo Swinney has never called a play. Okay? So it bugs, it irks me. Like, it's my main concern about Steve Sarkisian. Like, I know Kyle Flood's heavily involved, but why are you still on the sideline with the Waffle House card, buddy?
Yeah.
Like, there's so many different things you got to be paying attention to.
Lincoln Riley, all of that.
Lincoln Riley, all of them. I thought it was why Ohio State was so connected as they were last year, because Ryan Day could say, hey, look, I don't have to worry about offense. Chip's got it. If I want to give him, additives, if I want to give him tips, that's fine. He had so much of run at Ohio State, has so much freedom to get his hands involved in other things that he ran a defensive coordinator off.
Yep, exactly. 100%.
You know?
Yep. And so we will finish on this because we brought up Lincoln Riley. Lincoln Riley is a guy who he now has the #1 recruiting class in the country. And I believe that when Kirby was talking about them $20,000 a month, he was pointing over there at USC. And I've already given you my background on things, so I don't say things for no reason. And so with just guessing, unless I say I think, I wonder if. So I believe that this USC recruiting class is going to crumble like Jenga blocks. I'm not sure if you read that quote lately, but in an article. But there was, and the reason why I believe that is because this year in particular in NIL, stuff has gotten a little bit tricky in that they're offloading money from their collectives. And so there are some schools. Georgia is not one of these schools, which is why Oregon, Georgia, their recruiting is looking a little different this year at this point in time, because they're one of the schools that aren't paying these upfront bonuses.
They're listening to their lawyers is what they're doing.
Yes, because what happens is you have schools that are paying kids hundreds of thousands of dollars up front to commit and stay committed, not take more trips and all of this. But the issue is that, and then they're threatening the kids saying, well, if you leave or decommit, we're going to try to recoup the money. They cannot recoup that money because the collective is not supposed to be tied to recruiting. And what are you going to do? Go to the police and tell them that they stole your money and drugs?
So from my impersonation or interpretation of what's going on at USC right now, George, is one of two things. Okay. You're right. They are front loading all of this money. And some programs are doing this because there's anticipation that House vs. NCAA is going to pass. So let's rush as much money as we possibly can to these kids up front before that bill passes that's going to negate what we're actually doing. So that's what they're doing as well. Now, George, you're far more well-versed than anybody else I ever have this conversation with, including my co-hosts that sit on this desk. In the state of California, a verbal agreement is legally bounding.
Yes.
So if I tell, let's just say, for example, Mark Bowman, on June 1st, $200,000 is going to hit your bank account, okay? And you are there, thus a USC Trojan commit. And if you do not stay with your commitment, I will be getting that money back from you. Do you agree to that, yes or no? And the kid says yes, by thus taking the money June 1st. Is he not contractually obligated, verbally obligated to thus fulfill that verbal agreement?
So
In the state of California.
Okay. So there's a little bit of trickiness to that. So on one hand, yes, you are right, but there's some legalities to it, right? But the other part is that if USC then, or their collective House of Victory says, Mark Bowman, you decommitted, we need this $200,000 back, right?
Mm-hmm.
The way the rules are written in college football now is that the collectives are supposed to be doing NIL money, not pay for play money, but we all know that
Correct.
it's pay for play money.
Yeah.
Is that it's not supposed to be tied to you going to that school. So you are supposed to, in the contracts, have things that you're supposed to do, a number of appearances, places you're supposed to show up, all of this stuff.
Correct.
So, and these people have signed contracts. So if you signed a contract saying, because in the contracts, it doesn't say it's tied to you going to USC, because they're not allowed to put that in there, because then that
Correct.
now incriminates them to literally to the NCAA or whoever can have enforcement power, if anybody still has any, to say, well, the kid stayed at the school. I'm sorry, the kid fulfilled all of the requirements. He said, I'll show up at your events. I'll show up here, show up there. But now I don't want you there because you're not at USC. So that's the issue about whether legally they may be able to try to recoup it versus incriminating themselves for doing something that is against the rules.
We're really tied in the weeds here, but I could be wrong. I thought the state of California passed the same bill that the state of Missouri passed, where you could predate NIL payments for commitments in state.
You can, but according to the NCAA rules, you are not the collectives are not supposed to be.
I'm with you, but state rules, state under currently, because we don't have any uniform body and we don't have any uniform legislation. State rules predate NCAA rules. That's why we see Tennessee absolutely dragging the NCAA through the courts all the time and win.
Yes,
because the state rule predates.
Yes. So, but that's where the issues lie, is whether the NCAA would still have enforcement power over them, rather the recouping money. You see what I'm saying?
I think if I were an agent, if I were Mark Bowman's agent, for example, we are not going to get into a lawsuit battle with the USC Trojans, first and foremost. Secondly, on paper, I'm not going to take no pay cut. You're going to go play for the USC Trojans. They're going to offer you $8 to $10 million over 3 years, is what I'm being told. Well, so you're going to be a Trojan.
Yeah, but this is the other part of it that I've talked to athletic directors, general managers off the record
False
about.
Promises.
Is that, yes, some of them are promises, but even the contracts that are signed, once the House settlement comes into place, teams are going to be over the cap. You can't pay a tight end $2-3 million, because think about this. This year it's supposed to be $20.5 million.
That's let's a tenth of your overall cap.
Yes,
like
let's say that exactly. Let's say that $17 million of it goes to football.
Mm-hmm.
Of the 85 scholarship players, this is not even them going up to 105.
105
of the 85 scholarship players, that is an average of $200,000 per player. So how are you finding millions for multiple players?
Illegally.
So what is going to be done is they are going to then try to run NIL deals through NIL Go, which is run by Deloitte. But the issue is there's an SEC school. a prominent SEC school, and there was an article about it recently, that had run their deals through Deloitte last year. And only 3 of their players came up with NIL values over $20,000, which means that, number one, you're trying to cap what the free market will pay you, which is an issue. So there are going to be lawsuits. So that's the moral of the story.
Yeah, I saw a Ross Dellinger tweet that said most schools are projecting that 90% of their current deals will be denied by Deloitte.
100%.
That's a lot.
Yep.
That's a lot.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm with you. I think Deloitte's going to get their butt thrown into court so freaking fast. I just hope they got good lawyers. We need them to actually have some type of power.
Yes.
Because I'm with you. I don't think the local gas station that's owned by a South Georgia dude who's had land money since the 1920s that's worth $100 million that's just sitting in his bank account can be able to buy a defensive end for $300,000 to show up to a gas station one time. Yeah. Which is what we got. I'm not saying I should use Georgia as an example.
Yeah. No.
But that's exactly what happened at Texas A&M in 2022.
Correct.
Sliced bread was not out of his gourd. He was telling the truth. They were pay for play with oil money. That's what was happening. And we can't have. I don't think we can have that happening. Now, what really gets, and we've gone way past this, but what really gets into a question here is like, how are you going to tell the CEO of Oracle that the 5-star quarterback's not worth $10 million?
Yes.
How are you going to be able to do that? I don't know. I understand why you tell the local, car dealership that no, the quarterback showing up one time is not worth $300,000. But how do you tell the Oracle CEO that plastering Bryce Underwood's face all over the world isn't worth $10 million of an evaluation?
Exactly.
I don't know.
Or how do you tell Dave Portnoy that?
Yeah,
how much is that worth to him? How much is it our athletes worth to him and his brand of Barstool?
Exactly. Like now, I get why Deloitte's going to go down to Texas Tech and be like, wait a minute, y'all got some oil tycoon that's got worth $4 billion and he just paying kids?
Yeah.
No, that's not how this is going to work. But if you got a Fortune 500 company whose CEO is a diehard Alabama fan, the hell you going to tell that guy? I don't know. He's 100. Chosen a bad marketing strategy? Good. Okay.
Exactly. But you guys, I got a chance to hang with my new buddy, Brooks Austin, man. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. We will absolutely do this again if you are down, Brooks, because I like this, man. I like talking college football with people who love college football as much as I do.
I love talking nowadays in 2025. I love having a conversation with somebody who I clearly disagree with, but I enjoyed the conversation. Like we had a spirited debate that didn't get personal or I'm not leaving with a high blood pressure. Like, how rare is that? I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the hell out of that, George.
F you bald bastard.
All
right. Thanks for coming on, Brooks.
Yeah, no doubt, man.
All right.